If you want it, you can grab it with your hands. Nothing's out of reach.
Hi guys, it's Hans here again. We're gonna go over the bug of the month tying video, and starting off, we're gonna tie the Stanky Leg. This is a super heavily weighted Euro streamer kind of fly. So to start out here, we've got the 5262 in a size 4, and we're gonna modify this hook a little bit to make it into a jig hook. Okay, so I've got the hook here. I'm gonna just take some hemos and clamp right behind the eye, and I'm gonna bend that hook eye up towards the sky. Okay, so just doing that small little modification there is gonna give us the jig that we need for this hook. All right, so we're gonna take we've got a Spawn 6.3 millimeter tungsten bead here. We're gonna take the hook and put it through the hole, and you'll see how that the hook eye, once I get it in the vise here, is gonna be pointing straight down. That's gonna give this thing the ability to always ride hook point up. Next, we're gonna take some 030 lead wire, and we're gonna do 16 wraps. I'm gonna start these wraps kind of right where the hook point is here. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we've got 16 wraps. Go ahead and break that lead off. Okay, now the lead isn't going to want to fit up in the bead as is, so I'm going to come in with some flat end pliers, or use the inside of your scissors here. I'm going to clamp down the first 3 wraps of this wire to flatten it a tad. You can see how it's nice and flat there. It's going to slide into that bead nice and easily. That's what we're looking for. Okay. Then we've got 6/0 uni thread in olive. We're going to start that right behind the lead, just to make sure that lead doesn't slide back. So we're going to just basically jam a whole bunch of thread back there. Then I'm going to big open spiral wraps up to right behind the bead. I'm going to take the tag right here forward and capture that with my thread. That just gives it so that my thread isn't getting sucked into the lead when I go to cover it. And then I'm going to bring that thread tag rearwards and capture it on the other side of that lead. So this is going to make it so now when I put thread wraps over that lead, my thread isn't going to be sinking into the lead. It's going to be squeezing on top of it and not going to let it go anywhere. So just lock that down real good there. And then my thread hanging down right around the bend or the point of the hook, we're going to add in our first real material. That's going to be these olive Sili legs. Okay, now these things come on a little tab like this. We're going to use half the tab, so I'm just going to split it in the middle. Right there. Okay. And then come down to the other end, split it again there. Okay, so we've got basically half that tab here. Okay, I'm gonna cut this big gross stuff up at the front off. I'm gonna tie these in and make sure we're capturing all the butts here, trying to create a fairly smooth underbody. Now we don't want to wrap this thread any further past the hook point, and you'll see why here in a second. So we just lock those Sili legs in place. We'll leave them nice and long for now. Fairly smooth underbody there, and then we'll progress our thread up to behind the bead. The next material is going to be this Trilobal Antron chenille in medium olive. Get yourself a good section of it, 8 to 10 inches or so. I'm going to come in and strip some material away from the core, or to expose the core. It'll give me a nice clean tie-in. And every time I do this, one leg of the core seems to be a lot longer than the rest of it, so just make sure you're getting both of those pieces of core to tie in so it doesn't unravel on you. Snag that stuff right behind the bead, and I'm being conscious to leave about one width of the Antron chenille behind the bead so it's not up touching it. Okay, and then pull the other tag rearward, Wrap that down. We're gonna just leave the thread here. So we're gonna start wrapping this chenille. See how I left that little gap behind the bead there? We want that. So we're gonna do one wrap, support your hook shank, really pull on that. You can see how each time I come around, if I support the hook shank and pull, you can see that chenille tighten. That's what we want, nice and tight wraps here. Supporting the hook shank so I don't bend the hook. Now, we've covered all the thread. Once we get to the rear of the hook with just the Sili legs, we're gonna wrap just the antron over the Sili legs, kind of loosely. This is gonna tame those legs so they're not flared out and they're gonna kind of stay closer to each other. Once you got that fairly loose wrap over just the Sili legs, we're gonna jump forward fairly far, okay, 2 wraps or so, and this is gonna help start creating our taper. So once we do that fairly large jump forward, we're gonna put another wrap right in front of it, and then support the hook and pull. You can see it tightens that chenille. Again, forward, support the hook, pull, support the hook and pull, support the hook and pull. And now right here, we left that opening because it's gonna give us an easy way to catch that chenille right at the end. And then I'm gonna walk some thread over it, making sure I'm like touching the bead with the thread wraps so I'm not trapping down any of that Trilobal antron. A couple wraps right in front of it, and then I can go ahead and trim off the tag here. And we're gonna do several whip finishes on this guy. So I'm gonna come in and do a 2-turn whip, tighten, come in, do a 3-turn whip, tighten, do another 3-turn whip, and tighten. It's gonna make sure nothing goes anywhere. We can trim off the tag. I use my vise to measure how long I like these legs. So I know from tying so many of them that I like them as long as this little notch or knob back here. So I come back, rest my scissors right against it, making sure not to stretch this stuff because it's gonna be really short if you stretch it when you cut. So it's fairly loose. I'm gonna snip that. Probably 1.5 times the body length. And then the last step here, we're gonna add some glue. So I've got this Loon Soft Head. I really like this stuff because it's a flexible glue and it seeps into the material really well. So I'm gonna apply this with a little bodkin here. So just stick my bodkin in the glue and I'm gonna put it right in the crevice and then just work that around. Get a little more here. Just rubbing it into all of those thread wraps. If you get some on the bead, that's fine. Then working it around my side until we get full coverage and nothing's gonna go anywhere. And that is the Stanky Leg. You'll see since I bent that hook, we have that hook eye pointing what will be straight up, straight down right now. And that's gonna allow this thing to ride hook point up constantly. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions on this, come in and I'm happy to steer you towards the materials. We'll see you on the next one.